Welcome to Breaking the Glass Ceiling podcast. We'll be talking about the challenges we all face when we pursue success. We'll talk to individuals and professionals who give us insight and practical advice on how they broke the glass ceiling and actually reached their goals. Our mission is to give you the tools and resources that help you overcome obstacles and unlock your full potential. Our episodes may get a little edgy, so you may want to buckle up and get ready to break those pesky glass ceilings. Now here's your host, a true professional ready to take the journey with you, Celeste Sierra.
And we're back, and I'm so excited to have Jonathan, also known as Johnny Swole. So I'm doing this for my husband, by the way.
Hey, it's all
he's
good.
like, you should have Johnny on the show.
Appreciate you, Ish. Thanks for having me.
So we had a girl last week, and she's all about fitness and all that stuff. So obviously I wanted to bring you because that's where I met you as well.
Sure.
At the gym when I used to be like, snatched. Not anymore, everyone.
You still are.
I've taken a break. But I mean, I really wanted to bring you on because you've been in the world of fitness and bodybuilding forever, I feel like.
20 years.
20 years. Yeah. And you're like 25, so since you were like a little boy.
35, but okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But so it is important, coming from like talking to Julie that was here last week, and
was that who was here?
Yeah, so Julie.
Yes.
And so it's completely different, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
On the fitness world and what it is for men.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about that and your experiences. You work so hard because I obviously see you on social media. I've seen you at the gym, and how dedicated. Like it's just being focused and dedication. Like not everyone can do what you guys do. I mean, you do shows, and that takes a lot. Yes. And then on top of that, you've developed a business, and so we'll touch on that. But tell us about how you got into this world of bodybuilding. Like, what got you there? Like, why? When did you decide, okay, this is what I want to do? I want to, not eat. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
no, actually, you guys do eat. Men eat, girls don't eat. But, just tell us.
Well, let me start it from the very beginning and make it, to a point. So when I was a kid, I knew that I wanted to be an actor, professional athlete, and a model. So just because I grew up watching Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course.
Yes.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. So growing up as a kid, I idolized these guys, and Kobe Bryant included, Michael Jordan, because I was very athletic as a kid. So I knew that I wanted to do something in the athleticism department or professional. So I wanted to play professional football or be a professional basketball player, but little did I know I was 5'8", my peak. So my dreams kind of crushed there. So I started developing a passion for fitness when I was weightlifting at the age of 12.
Wow.
I was in every sport you could think of. I was very athletic. Being born and raised in Los Angeles, California, South Central, the neighborhood there is pretty rough. Mm-hmm. I mean, at one point, me and my mom were at a bus stop in Vermont in Melrose, and we see a lowrider, doing their little hydraulic things, and guess who it was? I didn't know who it was at first, but it was Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg.
No.
I swear to God.
Wow.
But I had no idea who they were. I was only 8 years old, maybe 9, right? So there's no phones. You can't look up who's who back then.
Right.
So little did I know, 6 months later, I'm watching, my cable at home, and it's, MTV, and these guys are in the lowriders. Oh, these are the guys I saw. So then I knew who they were, and liked their music, and I had a sense of pride of being from LA because
they were from your neighborhood.
Correct.
Yeah.
They were from my neighborhood, and, Los Angeles, Hollywood. I was literally 10 miles to South Central, 10 miles to Hollywood. So I felt, as a kid growing up in Los Angeles, I felt like I had a lot of expectations to meet because of where I lived and who I was surrounded with. But also, I also had the, decision to make to either stay busy during sports and do the right thing or join gangs and do drugs and, do the bad stuff. So, of course, I chose to, to do the right thing because my father told me once when I was a kid to be a leader, not a follower. And so
tell my kids that all the time.
Do they? I mean, it's honestly, it works because it really embeds in our brains. Like, especially if you have that unconditional love from your parents, if they, take care of you, they love you, they listen to you. Of course, my parents did that, but they're both parents that, came from other countries. They're immigrants when they got here. Now they're citizens. They're both citizens. So they did it the right way. They came here for a reason. They gave me an opportunity. So for me, it was more so to make them proud. Right. Because they come to this country and, we're fortunate to be born and raised here and not see the poverty that they went through. Right. But actually, I got to experience it firsthand because at one point, my father took me to his country, which was Guatemala. And it was very, very poverty, like so poor. No electricity, no hot water, no refrigerator. The house was made out of bamboo and, aluminum foil and bricks.
None of the luxuries that we have here.
Yeah, we didn't have the luxuries that we have here. Yeah. So that humbled me as a kid. Wow. So coming back to, California, I was kissing the ground. I was like, because at one point over there, my father was like, well, I was telling him, I want to take a bath. He goes like, okay, well, haul some water from the from the well. Yeah. And I'm like, well, don't they have showers here? Like, no, you're going to have to boil the water if you want to take a lukewarm shower. Wow. I was like, damn. Wow. So that was very humbling. And then, dirt roads to compare to here was just a big culture shock. Right. And so like I was saying, being born and raised in LA, I just saw a lot of my friends doing the wrong things. And I was like, I don't want to be them. I want to grow up and I want to be successful. I want to be somebody. I don't want to just get shot. I don't want to get killed. I don't want to go to jail, So I always did the right thing, even when nobody was watching. And I felt like doing the right thing was always going to get me to the right path. Right. And of course, having God in my life was one of the biggest things that I tell people that stirred me to the right direction, because a lot of people don't realize, I didn't grow up very religious, although my mother was like, go to church, and had me do my baptism and, all that good stuff.
Confirmation,
and I'm like,
all that
confirmation. Stuff. I'm just like, why? Like, this is not necessary. As a kid, you don't understand why you're doing these things, right? Yeah. And little did I know, it was just preparing my faith and, my relationship with God. And, later down the road, I, touched base in a Christian church, and kind of that's where I felt like I connected more with God. But, a lot of things happened from then for me to like get that full connection, because I had to experience a lot of things prior for me to get that connection with him. Because, growing up, you're somewhat innocent. You don't really know better. You just know what you are taught or what you're told.
Or your parents
or what
tell
you see,
you.
What your parents, tell you. And so, I lived all my life in LA and I was out of trouble, played all these sports.
Which is crazy that you actually stayed out of trouble, right? Because growing up in those times, it was very difficult.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a lot of peer pressure of, joining gangs or doing drugs. Yeah. And I didn't do any drugs. I didn't drink till like I was 21. So
me too. Believe it or not.
So yeah, the peer pressure was till 21. I was all right. Let's try what the ruckus is all about, right? I got drunk off of Mickey's this much. I was tore up.
That's old school.
So yeah, I pretty much kept myself out of trouble, and then finally moved out from LA. I didn't want to move from LA because LA was my heart, soul, just was everything, that's where I was born and raised. And so my folks moved out here in the IE in 2005. So that's when I graduated high school. And I'm just like, okay, what am I going to do now? But prior to that, I had full ride scholarships to college.
Wow.
But
Through sports?
Through sports, football. So I was a really good running back. I had high rushing yards and touchdowns, and I had schools like Pepperdine, I had Texas Tech, Hurricanes. They wanted me, and unfortunately, I made a dumb decision to say no because I was madly in love with my first love, And at the time,
those girls always mess
senior
things
year,
up.
senior year, I was like devoted to get married to her and move in and all this good stuff. So she left me for somebody. And, you know, it's just sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and, you know, just got to move on from it. So I wasn't bitter towards her. It was just one of those things that you just kind of, you know, take a deep breath and just say, okay, well, what's next?
Learn from it and move on.
Next step in journey in life. Yeah. Move on. It was painful. It was very painful. But I think that's what made me just put my head down and just go after my goals and dreams and affirmations of like what I wanted to do. And that's where I knew like, okay, I started weightlifting, you know, so I developed a passion for it. I was no longer, you know, going to college. I was kind of more just, my father's like, hey, you know, you want a job? I was like, sure, I need to make money. Right. So I became an iron worker right after high school and was making some pretty decent money, but that kind of work, man. Oh my God.
Yes. Very demanding.
Yes. The labor and, you know, how hot it is and just overall the whole experience is, it's not easy.
Right.
Like you're just literally 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, overtimes and, you know, building from Staples Center to the San Manuel casinos. This is nonstop iron that they push out. Now,
were you doing that job in order to help you with your personal goals of, you know, bodybuilding and everything else that you wanted to do?
Yeah, because I wanted to get my own little place and I wanted to be independent, which I accomplished that. And, you know, I didn't really know much about bodybuilding until I met one of my good friends. His name was Greg Ferrer. We became trainers. Little after a year and a half of working as an iron worker, I knew that wasn't for me.
Right.
Like right off the bat, I would pray. I'd be like, God, get me out of here, please. This is not who I am. This is not who I was destined to be.
Right.
You know, I can't see myself working here. I don't have kids, for crying out loud. You know, I didn't have my daughter at the time. And so, you know, I just went into a 24-hour fitness gym where I used to work out at, one here in San Bernardino. Talked to a manager, asked him what it, you know, required to be a trainer. He told me. So it took about maybe 3 to 6 months to finally get my foot in the door and, you know, go to the schooling and all that good stuff to get my certificates. And I quit the ironworking and started personal training. That's where I met my best friend. And him and his buddy were bodybuilding. And, you know, they invited me to the bodybuilding show because they're about my age, 19-ish, 18. And it was like a teenage category. So he killed it.
Oh, I didn't even know they had teenager categories. Okay.
He killed it. And I was inspired, but I was very skinny. I was very, like, you know, Bruce Lee.
You skinny, really?
I was. Unfortunately, I was at one point. Not skinny like Bones, but I was like, you know, I didn't have this muscle mass because I didn't know how to eat right to get bigger, right?
Right.
I thought it was eat McDonald's, and no, it's the same food, just more of it, you know? And so as he did his show, he won first place and overall champion. I'm like, man, that's really cool, but I cannot see myself wearing a Speedo. Because he told me, he's like, bro, you should do a show. I'm like, hell no. There is no way in God's green earth I'm putting on this Speedo, bro. It's being uncomfortable, right? That's what it was.
Here we go again with being uncomfortable.
Of course. You know, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's what I tell everybody, including my daughter. I think being uncomfortable pushes you to the next level to become somebody that you don't think you want to become. Because I didn't necessarily knew I was going to be a bodybuilder, but as I put my mind into it, I'm like, you know, I was being inspired by Schwarzenegger, Franco Columbu, all these old school bodybuilders, Frank Zane. And so next thing you notice, I'm just like training like him. And then I went for it in 2009. I did my first show. I got smashed, but I mean, I learned from it. You know?
And this is when you were how old? 20?
20 years old, yeah.
So at 20 years old, you did your first show.
First show.
That's crazy. Okay.
And so, you know, I did my research of, you know, how to prepare for the next time. And I went like 10 years without a coach. So I did pretty good being coachless, coaching myself. And then finally I realized, okay, I need some expertise, advice, or another pair of eyes. And I ended up hiring Frank Zane, which is a former 2-time Olympian, but it was more of an online, and then Chris Cormier, and then that's when I went to Ryan Benson in person. I felt like that more connection.
Right.
And so all three of them taught me so much over the years that now it's like, you know, I am who I am because of them, you know, but at the same time, it was because of my hunger of wanting to be successful.
Right.
You know, because somebody could tell you and give you a game plan, right? And, you know, it's just a matter of like whether you follow it or not, you know. That's the biggest challenge for a lot of people. It's following the plan. That's a hard thing to do because people are set in their ways.
It's so difficult because, and it's with everything, because we talk about everything in the podcast. And in order to be successful, it doesn't matter what field or what industry we're talking about. It is hard work.
Yep.
Without hard work, you're never going to accomplish that goal or those dreams.
Correct.
But you have to set your mind to being able to just go for it, right? So, I mean, starting at 20 and then working towards those goals. And then you went how many years without a coach, you said?
About 10.
So that's a long time.
Yeah.
But it's 10 years of you working without a coach, but still working at it. Mm-hmm. And then, so then you moved into getting a coach.
Yep.
What made that shift? Like, why did you figure, okay, well, now I need a coach?
More so because I would get within the first place ranges. I just couldn't get past the overall championship.
Right.
And then I knew there was another level on top of that. There's regional shows, and then after regional shows is national shows.
Right.
And after national shows is the professional league, which now, 2020, I became a professional. So it took that long. But, like I said, I never gave up on the dream. That's what it was. And to this day, I have 0 tattoos because I knew that I was going to become a professional athlete or model or actor, which for me, nothing against tattoos or anybody that has tattoos. I just felt like it just took away from my image. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, want to jeopardize that. Right. Especially if I was bodybuilding. I didn't want my definition to go away if I had, a sleeve right here or whatever.
Right.
Not that it doesn't matter, but, to me, that's what it was. And what's crazy is, I also was featured in Men's Fitness magazine.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So in 2020, while the world was falling apart, I'm over here like, God is just blessing me left and right. And I'm like, why? Like, why me?
That was really cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's crazy is to that story or, how that happened was when I was 12 years old, I remember this vividly. My mother and I, we were on to this store called Thrifty.
I remember Thrifty.
Back then, it was called Thrifty. Now, I'm not sure if you guys remember. It's called Rite Aid now. So, but anyways,
there's still Thrifty ice cream.
Yeah, Thrifty ice cream. They still have them. So I still love that stuff. And so we go to the Thrifties. My mother get me some Thrifty ice cream, vanilla and chocolate, cookies and cream, and I was a happy kid. I went straight down to the magazine sections. And I would just look at the Muscle and Fitness. I look at the Iron magazines, study up the routines. This is me at 12.
Wow.
I didn't have an older brother, and my father was always working 12 hours every day. My mother was working too. So it's like I didn't grow up on my own, but I grew up by myself, knowing that whatever I wanted to accomplish could be possible if I proceed to, pursue the dream or whatever it was that I wanted to do. Right. So I'm over here in the aisle, looking at the magazines, eating my ice cream, 12-year-old happy kid. And then here comes my mother. And, my name is Jonathan, but they call me Johnny, right? And so, Johnny. I was like, what, Mom? Yeah, vámonos. Let's go. I'm like, great. I was like, hold on. Can you buy me this magazine? She goes, no, ya nos vamos. Ya. Solo vinimos por unas cosas. We only came for a couple of things, and let's go. All right, Mom, watch. One of these days, I'm going to be on one of these magazines. Watch. Okay, mijo, that's nice. Let's go. I'm like, great.
Wow.
So I'm like,
little did you know.
Yeah, little did I know. 20-something years later, I was going to be featured not in one, but 2 magazines. But, I manifested what I wanted to do without knowing that I was going to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I believed it in my heart. I believed it in my mind, and I'm sure God planted that in my heart and desires to eventually, flourish and for it to happen. So, she just said, okay, that's nice. And I put it back, and I was a little disappointed because I really wanted the magazine because I wanted to keep reading, the routines. And so, again, fast forward to, now 2020, I met my photographer, Jason Ellis. He's very popular. He's also a director for movies. He's had over 500 plus covers of magazines with all sorts of, Michael Hearn, Phil Heath, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the list goes on. So nowadays I tell people it's not who you know, it's not like it's who you know nowadays.
Right.
If anything,
Yeah.
you know, it's not so much like who you are. It's like who you know.
Yeah.
And so you got to be connected with the right people to get to the destination where you want to go.
Yeah, because you just never know where it's going to come
Correct.
from, or yeah.
And so in 2020, you know, like I saw him. I said, hey, I'd like to shoot with you, and I know it's an investment to obviously do a photo shoot with you, but I'll do whatever it takes because I really want to make this happen. And he goes, okay, sure. So we shot in, I want to say it was in June of 2019, but we didn't get the magazine covered till February of 2020.
And this happened after you won your nationals.
A little before nationals.
Before nationals.
So I was still in the, you know, in the hunt for my professional card.
Yeah.
For the IBB Pro card, they call
Yeah.
it. And I didn't have any luck till 2020. And in a pandemic, you know, like on February 2020, I'm over here, Men's Fitness, you know, cover model, featured front cover. And I'm just like, March, next thing you know, the world's falling apart. I'm like,
That's
what the
so
heck is going
crazy.
on, right? So it was crazy. It was hard to believe, but, you know, I was happy, but I was broken because the world was just shattering, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And so then I land that, and then, you know, I start training a director that's also a movie director, and he wants to put me in his movie. So
Yes,
we start
I was
doing
going to ask
that.
you about that.
So that's, you know, it's all those
I
little
remember Ish and I
connections.
were like, ooh, Johnny's on a movie or TV, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. That was actually pretty cool.
Thank you. So what's crazy, too, is people don't know that I used to take classes in college and high school.
Acting
for
class?
Acting, yeah.
Okay.
Because I wanted to be an actor. You know, actually, Leonardo DiCaprio went to my high school, John Marshall.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, we had a great art program, acting program. So I learned to become not shy in the camera or speaking to hundreds of people just because I'm like, at first I was a very shy guy just because wasn't confident enough.
Right.
But now I'm just like, put me against 500 people. Like I'll talk to them like I'm just talking to you right now.
Right.
It's not a big deal. So I think that prepared me to, you know, even for the bodybuilding, and then for him to say, hey, I got a part for you. You could be my bodyguard, and all you do is just, you know, do the dirty work. I'm like, yeah, that's easy, you know? As long as I don't have a bunch of lines, you know? He's like, no, you'll be fine. So, you know, it took us like almost 3 years to finish that film.
Really?
Because we started in 2019, and then 2020 hit. So
yeah.
that whole year is just like pretty much
Couldn't do anything.
lost, right?
Yeah.
So the movie was actually finished last year. It's called Business of Betrayal. My name is Odo. And so I'm basically just his bodyguard. And
Are you supposed to be like a Russian bodyguard or
yes,
something? Oh,
basically.
okay. I'm like, Odo.
So I do all his bad work, and, you know, it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. You know, shortly after that, I picked up another film called Desert Queen. We finished that one too. That should be done in October. And then it's just like, it's crazy because in that small little circle,
Yeah.
you know, people see your work, and they're
Yes.
like, man, this guy's good or she's good, like natural, right? And that's all I needed to just be discovered,
Right.
even in a featured budget, small budget film. Like, I don't care.
It has to start somewhere.
It has to start somewhere,
Yes.
right? And so now, this other director's name is J.J. Stomp. He does a lot of international films, so these films will actually be worldwide. So we have 2 films that he wants to start in June simultaneously. I'm like, bro, you're crazy. He goes, well, we'll go from this one to this one, but I want to start The Garage. On that, we're going to have a main role. You're a bad guy. And then Pooh Part 2, which I guess he did Pooh Part 1. And it's more of a mixed martial arts. Mm-hmm. And so in Pooh Part 2, he wants me to fight him. So that's why you see me boxing a lot nowadays, because I'm sharpening my fighting skills with a professional boxer coach, too. His name is Joshua. So we meet once a week for an hour. And, you know, once a week I do my own little drills by myself. But it's interesting how it's when you have the passion and desire to become good at something, like you almost become obsessed with it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So at one point I had so much obsession with this bodybuilding, and I still do, don't get me wrong, but because I have so many different avenues and so many different things that I have to focus on, like it's a focus primarily, but it's not a primarily focus because I have so many other things like the beef jerky
But
business.
it's so interesting though, because you talk about wanting to be an actor and wanted, you know, you liked sports and, you know, fitness since you were very young.
Yeah.
And here you are 25.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And you've accomplished everything basically that you wanted to do since you were young. So what would you say was the number one or number two things that you were like, okay, this is what I'm going to do because this is what I want to accomplish? Yeah. Was it just you always had it in your mind and everything that you were doing, you know, through the years was to get there? Or, I mean, what makes you different from like another person saying or sitting there thinking, oh, well, I want to be into bodybuilding, but they haven't taken that step? Like, what did you do differently?
Well, honestly, I think for me, I have this very personal, very addictive personality. Mm-hmm. So once I find something that I'm passionately, that I love, like I don't stop doing anything that's going to make me better for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You just go for it until it's done.
Exactly. Yeah. So it like I become obsessed to a point where until I accomplish it, then I feel relief. Like, oh, right. Okay.
Right.
And so with the bodybuilding, it took me 4 years to go professional and a lot of money.
It's a very expensive sport. A lot of people don't know that. Mm-hmm. It's very expensive.
From the traveling fees, from the airfare to the
Speedos.
Hotels, the Speedos, the food, the supplements. The list goes on, because you don't have a bunch of sponsorships when you're, amateur.
Starting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I funded a lot of my a lot of my fees, and of course having to pay my coach too, and all these other influence people that were around my life. It's just it took. That saying that goes, it takes money to make money. So 100%. It's true.
That's true.
Like, if you don't want to spend money in your business, then, you're not going to go very far. You have to be willing to sacrifice, to spend money, to market for your business or, network with people and go, brand yourself, put yourself out there. And that was one of the biggest things that I think I did, and how I got my name, Johnny Swole. I'm going to give you guys the answer. So in high school, we were
tell us, please.
We were at a football game, and one of my good friends of mine went to the rival school that, we were both rivals, John Marshall and Belmont.
Yeah.
And so we were both captains, and I had my helmet on, so he didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. So the ref goes, all right, heads or tails, and we called it. And then we took our helmets off. He's like, holy shit, Johnny? You got swole, bro.
so that's how it started? It stuck. That is so funny.
So because the last time he had seen me was like in 8th grade, and this was junior year. So that's 2-3 years. We've been in the weight room. We've been, really eating more and trying to put on some more meat. And so, he just was like, oh, shit, Johnny, you got swole. And everybody's like, oh, shit, Johnny Swole. So it just kind of stuck. And then even on MySpace, when that social media came out, it just Johnny Swole, right? And then it just became part of who I am.
For some of you that don't know what MySpace is, it's the old Instagram.
Yes. Where you can have music in your profile, by the way, and 10 good friends, your top 10,
So let's talk about, what inspired you? I want to talk about, so we have some here.
Swole beef jerky.
Swole beef jerky. By the way, this is amazing. I've been a big, huge fan of this since you probably came out with it.
2020, yeah.
I'm like, send me some.
Oh, yeah. Her favorite is mango habanero.
Yes. What inspired you to start your own beef jerky? And it's great.
Thank you. So, that story was in 2020. No, I'm sorry, 2019. I was training my client at the time. His name was Don Graham. He is actually now my financial advisor.
Okay.
And he kind of guides me of financial moves and, taxes and all that good stuff. Because I have no idea at one point, and I'm sure nobody does, because school doesn't teach you that stuff.
Thank you. I talk about this all the time. We need to bring it to the schools.
So yes, I just finished my corporate taxes 3 weeks ago. Thank God. I'm sure you can understand.
No, I wait until the last minute. Yeah, sorry. I'm one of
I didn't want to wait till the last minute because I knew I had it coming. But yeah, so he actually, we were training one time because he's followed my journey to become IFBB Pro. And the 2 times he went to my national shows, he went to New York with me. Mm-hmm. He went to Las Vegas. And he saw me get within the top 3, top 5. And he was really upset because he's like, bro, you should have gone pro. That's BS. So he got to a point where he actually got a little depressed for me and upset. I'm like, Don, it's not that serious. I'm going to get it eventually. Don't worry.
Right.
He's like, well, you should be doing, you have so many, because I had Mr. Los Angeles, Mr. Orange County, overall champion titles from bodybuilding. And I really wanted that IFBB Pro card. It was just one of those things that I want it so bad. Like it was a credential for me in the fitness, personal training, bodybuilding world.
It's a huge deal for people in the body fitness world.
Absolutely. So we're training one day, you know, and this is him already like kind of getting over me not going pro. We're doing some bicep curls. He's like, Johnny, I'm like, what's up, Don? I got it. I was like, what? Swole jerky. And I'm like, what? He goes, yes. You've done such a good job branding your name, yourself. You've got a reputation. Yes. You've got these titles. The hell with your pro card. You don't need that shit. He goes, I have the perfect business partner for you. And I was like, beef jerky? He's like, yes, bro. He's killing. He's a multimillionaire. I'm like, all right. I kid you not, Celeste. I sat on it for a month. And I thought about it. I'm like, this is not who I am. I don't know nothing about beef jerky. What the hell? You know? So then my business partner calls me, and Sean. He was like, hey, Johnny, Don says that you might be interested in going to business with me. He goes, what's up? And I'm like, bro, honestly,